Okay, so with Temtem being accessible to a wider audience, there are of course a lot of newcomers to the game, many of which are coming from Pokemon and trying to acclimate themselves to the new type chart, as the interactions are quite different beyond some of the more basic ones like water beating fire. The game also has 2 new unique typings in the form of digital and crystal, so these really shake things up. In today's video, we're going to be going over the type chart and discussing all of the type interactions and why they are the way that they are from a logical perspective. This hopefully will aid in helping you remember each of them as well. Anyways, all that being said, don't forget to subscribe for more Temtem and monster taming content, and let's dive in. Alright, so Temtem has 12 types total, and just a little hack here. If you've captured a specific Temtem and then go up against them in battle, you will actually notice that when using an attack on them and highlighting them, you'll see 3 different colors. You have the neutral color, which is just white or gray. You have this green or yellowy color that denotes a super effective hit, and a red color for a not very effective hit. Types that are advantageous do 2 times damage for each type that they beat. So dual types like Whiplump that have 2 types weak to the same attack will take ×4, and reversely, 2 resisting types will take 1/4 damage. This is identical to Pokemon and shouldn't be something you're not already used to. The first type on our list is the neutral type, which is super effective against no types and resisted by mental. This is because neutral represents the average, whilst mental represents the intellectual elite, outsmarting the average person. Next, we have the wind type, which is super effective only to toxic, and this is the idea of wind blowing away toxic fumes. It's resisted by electric because of the idea that when lightning strikes, it hits what's highest, and wind itself because wind and wind just makes more wind. You'll see a lot of types being resisted by attacks of their own typing, and it's pretty self-explanatory as to why. Piece of trivia: wind used to be super effective against earth, but they deemed it too overpowered, so that was removed. Speaking of which, next up we have the earth type, which is super effective to fire because, I mean, if you throw sand or dirt on fire, it'll eventually extinguish it. Electric due to grounding, which disperses the electricity. And crystal, since crystals are growing from the ground and would be cracked by an earthquake. It's resisted by wind because ground can't touch what's in the air. Water, since water turns dirt into mud, and you also have corrosion. And nature, since plants grow from the ground, gaining sustenance from it. Next we have the water type, that's good against fire, obviously. Earth, again, we just discussed. And digital, since, I mean, throw your microwave in a lake and see what happens to it. It's resisted by nature, since plants absorb water to grow. Toxic because water gets polluted by it, and water itself. The fire type is good against nature, since fire kills plants, and crystal due to the idea of heating up various gems and diamonds in order to mold them. It's resisted by water, again, pretty obvious. Earth for reasons we've already discussed, and fire itself. The nature type is advantageous against earth and water for reasons we've already discussed, whilst going over its resistances, and it's disadvantageous to fire and toxic since both kill plants and nature itself. Okay, so the electric type is advantageous to water because water is an excellent conductor. Wind, which we've discussed. Mental, which I think is supposed to be a nod to like electroshock therapy or something like that. That sort of idea of like frying the brain. And also digital because of the idea of overcharging, therefore causing a short circuit. It's resisted by earth, which we've discussed already. Plant, likely due to the fact that wood and plants in general make for poor conductors. Crystal, for similar reasons to earth in that they'd be mostly grounded. And electric itself. The mental type is advantageous to neutral, as we mentioned in the beginning of this video, and melee because of the idea of brain over brawn. It's resisted only by crystal, which I believe is due to the idea that the mind seems to have a weakness to gems and crystals, placing sometimes arbitrary values on otherwise kind of useless stuff. I mean, my wife's engagement ring costed quite a bit, and I mean... The digital type, which mostly encompasses Temtem that are robotic in nature, is advantageous to mental since computers have much higher processing powers than even the most intellectually elite. Melee because it's brain over brawn but to the extreme, and digital itself, which is likely due to the idea of hacking. It's disadvantageous to absolutely nothing in the game, making it quite powerful. Next up is a melee type, which is good against earth, likely due to the idea of martial artists being able to break through concrete as a demonstration, as well as crystal, which is a little bit odd because I ain't seen many martial artists breaking through literal gemstones, but maybe you could stretch it and say that ice is sort of like crystallized water, and it is a common thing for martial artists to chop through blocks of ice, and there's no ice type in Temtem, so maybe it's a nod to that. It's resisted by mental, which we've discussed, and itself. The Crystal type is good against both Electric and Mental, both of which we went over, and resisted by Earth and Fire, both of which we already went over as well. Another cool typing in my opinion, and creates a lot of interesting designs. Finally, last but not least, we have the Toxic type, which beats both Nature and Water, which I have discussed previously in that it pollutes them. It's disadvantageous to Earth, Digital, and Crystal, all of which are likely due to the reason that beings of these attributes likely wouldn't really be inflicted with biological poison. I mean, try putting rat poison on your computer. I don't think your computer's gonna have an issue with that. But yeah, guys, those are all of the type interactions in Temtem and a little bit about how they function and why. A quick note that you should also know is that I didn't mention this earlier, but certain types are immune to specific status conditions. For example, a fire type can't be burned, a toxic type can't be poisoned, a mental type can't be put to sleep, etc. I'll be diving deeper into this once we do a status condition video, which is already in the works, but for now, I do have an older one that I put together that you can sort of check out if that does interest you. Do note that information might be dated, and I will replace the link with the new one once it's out in a few days. Anyways, all of that being said, if you are a fan of Temtem or just monster taming games in general, definitely subscribe to my channel because I put out new monster taming videos every single day. You can check out my Twitter, my Discord, and my Patreon, all links below. Special thanks to the patrons, especially Jim Hamilton, Dro Ghost, Dark Persona, and Exodus, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.